Okay, I think we're live. Hi, everybody. Dr. Laura Foster here, Soul Inspired Girl. This is our first Facebook Live inside our private Facebook group. I am super excited not only to have a conversation and a cup of coffee with one of my most favorite people in the world, but also within the group that is quickly becoming one of my most favorite places to play on the internet. Today I have Dr. Danielle Warner. I almost introduced myself.
After 10 plus years, you can. I respond to Laura Foster now, by the way.
I was going to try and pretend like I didn't just do that, but I did just do that. So everyone, this is Dr. Danielle Warner. You don't need to call her Dr. Danielle Warner. I call her Danielle, and we also call her DW. Danielle, thank you for meeting me here today.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
So for those of you who don't know who we are or don't know who Danielle is, Danielle's in our group. She is not a social media lover, although I have noticed she's upped her game in the last couple of years. She is a chiropractor. We have worked together. Danielle, how long have we worked together?
14 years.
Okay, 14 years. 14 years as chiropractors together, partners in practice. As you know, I retired from full-time from practice at all last December, and Dr. Danielle purchased my practice, and rather the business, from me last year. That's the long and the short of it. That is not the most interesting things about us, but that is just sort of the background news to us. But we have been friends and partners and, girlfriends in crime and, mothers, and just really like linked arms for a long time. So when I thought about, having some interesting, what I call next level conversations within our group, you came to mind right away. So Danielle, today I asked you like straight off, I said, you can think about it. What is it that you want to talk about today? And you said,
right away, resiliency.
Why did you want to talk about resiliency?
That's a word that has come up over the past 6 months so much, because I really feel like we have this very rare and unique opportunity to look at that in ourselves and our families. For me, I've been a lot of what I try to think about in my life is, what can I control? That idea of the serenity prayer, right? Grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can't, and the wisdom to know the difference. So right away when this happened, when, I'm not going to mention it. It's like, don't name it.
When it happened.
When it happened, I thought about, like, it was okay, what can I control? What can I not? There were so many emotions. I was terrified, frankly. My business, I just purchased the practice. It was like this, my baby. And the thing that kept coming up was, oh, I feel really resilient. Like I did. And I thought, why do I feel that way? And I have been working very, very hard on identifying those things that I can't change, the things that I can, letting go of the things that I can't. And the only thing that I can come up with that we can actually control is our relationships, right? And our relationships specifically with yourself, with myself, right? And you can control any relationship because you can always choose your thoughts about something. You can always choose your thoughts and how that dictates your actions, everything, right? And so it was, and I've been able to work with people throughout and, checking in on how everybody's doing. There's these different levels of resiliency that are coming up.
I was curious about that. I was curious about that because what I always loved about being in practice is that you have hundreds and hundreds of people come in, thousands over the course of a year, that literally mirror to you all these different ways we show up in life. And I don't mean it from like a judgmental perspective. I mean it from just an observation. Like you see people, specifically, the majority of my practice was always women. And I get to see it. And I'm just so grateful because it's hard to see it sometimes within ourselves. But when we see it mirrored back to us in a really positive way, and sometimes in those ways in which we struggle, you're like, what's the difference there? It's just like the natural question that you ask. And what do you think is that? Because it is about recognizing, especially academically in our brain, what we control and what we can't. But like when you're in the the shit's rising and stuff like that, you can't necessarily be like, whatever the poem was, Serenity.
Yeah.
Or at least I don't have that genuine ability to do it. Sometimes I'm like, well, I'm a Taurus, and I'm like, high driver. And so sometimes it comes out like a big giant volcano, and then the pieces all come back in. So you might be a little bit more grounded than I am in some ways. How do you see it mirrored back to you in practice? Like what are the ranges?
Well, so, obviously as a chiropractor, I can see a lot of symptoms. We had this conversation actually a few months ago where I said, I haven't seen, everybody was coming in, like those that weren't, right? We live our lives through our nervous system and our expression and our perception. And those that were feeling weighted down, everybody was coming in with this neck pain and arm pain. It was a classic kind of thing. And for a short period of time, it was almost like I just felt like I needed to just take the lid off the pressure valve for everybody. Mm-hmm. But then what happened was and again, the team, at the clinic I've been so impressed. And we just dropped the like holy camoli story, try not to swear, and started to shift in a very like really, really conscious about the words that we're using, conscious about the conversations we're having. I vetoed a whole lot of expressions that have now become commonplace. Yeah. And then what happened though, is that then as people are coming in, you change the conversation, and then there's this gratitude, the silver lining. People are coming in and it's, right away, right? So
disarming.
Yes. Right. Yeah. So, and then it's been beautiful. And so I've been so, touched by people's, their trust and their faith. They come in, and we've always done this, the 5-10%, and what is it we're doing? And it doesn't matter what's going on outside. How do we maintain that sense of calm, or of just an understanding that the universe is friendly, right?
And the universe has your back.
Yes. Even now, even though I can only see you with half my face, right? And even though, right, all of those things, it's, and also it was very apparent that we as humans need touch, and the level of healing just went like, right? It was amazing, right? So yeah.
I totally get that. And it is about, which is such a great metaphor for life, really, which is you're creating a space to disarm people, to allow them to have a different experience. And I think that's kind of what we're talking about here. And, someone said to me, well, what does resiliency mean? And I'm like, that's a great question. It's that mental, emotional ability to stand in the face of stress, or to quickly bounce back in the face of stress. So it's going to get you down. You're either going to get it coming from the front end, or it's going to come up your back end, but it's going to get you. So it's not a matter of like, can I make myself impervious to the effects of what's going on? It's how can I create a set of habits, behaviors, thought processes? Who can I surround myself with? What are the strategies? What am I literally consciously putting in my life that allows me to push back the effects of it, right? The bounce back, because that's the one thing you can control, is it not?
Yeah. Well, and the other thing with that resiliency, it's like, okay, it's the vulnerability for me. It hasn't been the easiest thing for me, vulnerability, or allowing myself. And I mean, I just had and I've always used, going in practice, it's just been this beautiful compartment of like awesome sauce, right? And so that was sort of reduced. And then, as I had a procedure where I had to like literally not exercise and all of the things. And I thought, wow, that's interesting. Like the just sitting in the whole vulnerability thing. But then and that was such a good experience. And I think for many of us, it has been, because a lot of what we do to either distract ourselves or, is gotten taken away. We don't have access to it. And so you get this like strange vibration, and then you grow from there. Right? Well, or ideally you grow from there.
Well, you definitely inform yourself, right? Like that level of I mean, I've really noticed that, especially in working with women and coaching, that the thing that often comes up is people want clarity, people want clarity, people want clarity. I'm like, well, how do you like the clarity right now? Because it's really clear. And that's the thing. Clarity doesn't always feel amazing. In fact, it often, well, that's not true. It cannot, sometimes it doesn't feel great, because you're right. When you push back certain things, and certain things sort of were chosen for you, so life, for not everyone, but for a lot of people, slowed down, the inside got really noisy, didn't it? Like all of a sudden you were clear on, that's for me, that's not, this is working.
Right. And we're not,
I like this.
And our relationship, like, I know that in my own life, my relationship with myself hasn't always been honest. You know, I say I want clarity. How can I have clarity if I'm doing all of these things to not allow that? Right. Because clarity is, well, like being, well, for me, it would be being very busy, right? Stacking my schedule like this, and whatever, like drinking can be another one, right? Or these kinds of things where, you know, I tell myself, well, I'm just tired. I want to like numb out, or I want to whatever. But then it starts to affect my mood, right? And I know that I can't really lie to myself anymore if, say, I'm like getting mad at my dog for being a dog, or like I'm you know, like when I walk my dog and I'm raging at my terrier for being a terrier, right? It's like, okay, what like when it all got taken away, it's like, it's just like I got called on all of my own crap because there's no one else to blame. Right?
I love it. And also, I think one thing that can happen in practice as a practitioner is you put on your practitioner self. Like you lead with your heart, I'm for sure. But you put on your practitioner self and you go into practice and you can find like a next level. And then you can walk out of practice and you're kind of tired, right? Because especially, I'm sure with a mass, must be crazy amount of outside, like trying to emote and connect, and that's a whole nother story. But having said that, I do think that for me, I had to work extra hard at showing up for myself outside of practice, because it was so much easier for me to show up for other people. And that is the frickin' crux of it. I think as women, we can have a tendency to just frickin' put on our biggest big girl panties and show up in the world. But then when we come home and we're sitting in the sanctity of my rental bedroom, that you need to show up for yourself. And that's the thing that I don't think the universe will tolerate right now, is not showing up for ourselves. Yeah.
No, I agree. And I actually, so we never fully shut down, but it was I had to qualify who I was adjusting, acute, emergency, and it was only 3 days a week. And I didn't realize I was low. It felt like, again, there must have been some level of like sadness that I wasn't recognizing, because I was so used to just giving in such a massive way. It's a, you know, when I show up and I'm adjusting and it's a serve, and then I'm kind of just too tired to like I go to sleep and come up and do it again, and then that was gone. And I was like, oh, interesting. All of the gaps on where I wasn't having perhaps the best relationship with myself came out, right?
Yeah.
Like, what am I doing in my downtime? Yeah, it was.
Well, it's painful to know that we can find energy to show up for other people, but we're really quick to not show up for ourselves. And I'm been really big lately into like looking at my origin story. I'm like, where does that come from? Why is it that I think that's okay? Or what story do I have connected to that? So like one of the things is my identity as a mom. When I asked myself, like, what do I believe a good mom is? Like, what does that mean to be a good mom? And years ago, if you asked me that, I would have said it was a lot of like the things that I love to do, which is like be there for my kids and everything from like cooking dinner to like creating a really homey environment and so on. But nowhere like in order for me to do that, that also meant that I had to show up in a way where I was putting pretty much everyone ahead of myself, right? So it's like, in order to have the bandwidth to fulfill what I told myself being a mom needed to be, it meant that something had to slide and that someone was me. And then when life kind of went and I landed on my face and I had to dig myself up, I had to relook at that. I was like, why do I think it's not okay to take care of me? Right? And when I did that, and this is some of the work that I've been doing with clients, is that when you really look at that, you realize, oh, I've connected those two things. I've said that in order to be a great mom, a great partner, a great sister, a great friend, or whatever, that means I need to care more about them than I care about myself. And even if that's not the words you say with yourself, when you look at are your actions in alignment with what you say, that's what we're doing. So it's like that turning around and calling yourself on your own frickin' bullshit. Because if someone asked you if that's the way to show up in life, you'd say, well, you can't, you have to put your, oxygen mask on before you put your kids. And we say all these things, but then our actions don't align. Do you ever see that?
Yeah. And then you're getting into this, even if it's not identified, resentment, right? Resentment. And there can't be, if you don't show up for yourself during those periods, there can't be even an element of, there's an element of shame of all these things because you've separated yourself, right? And that breeds, all the physical stuff and all the
anger and the frustration and so on. And that's why we get talking about boundaries and so on. So I'm doing double duty over here. I got my Facebook group. For those of you who don't know, you can't split screen and do interviews straight from Facebook Live anymore. Thanks, Facebook. So instead I'm streaming for Zoom. So it's hard for us to see the Facebook account. So how beautiful. Hello, everyone. There's 12 of us on here. Hi, Julie, Janet, Heather, Mary, all these people. Mickey, so great to see you, and Laura. Okay, so Heather, you gotta love Heather. She's always gonna have a good question for us. Dr. Heather, some people don't know how to show up for themselves. What does that mean to you? So what does it mean to show up for yourself? Great question, by the way. Like specifically for you, what does that mean?
Yeah, pausing, stopping and pausing before I say yes. That's a hard one for me. I'm like, I'm in, I'm on it, I'm in, right? Count me in. I'll make it work no matter what. I really am, and it's a pleasure.
And it's like, you.
It's a challenge. It's like, I got this, but then there is always that feeling and that resentment comes. And so if I just, and even like when I get an email or when I get a message, I need to do it right away. I need to take care of that for that person right away. And so I've been trying to just leave it at the end of a certain point in the day. Don't check anything. I don't check anything after 8 anymore. And I don't respond. Airplane mode. When all my loved ones are with me, airplane mode, right? Before I turn it back on in the morning, I have my coffee, I walk my dogs, whatever it is, and then I turn it on when I'm ready to do it. That's created so much space, and that feels like self-love, right? Even if I'm not doing anything specific, well, that is specific, but
right.
That's it.
I love that you just caught yourself saying that, because for some reason that feels like a luxury.
Yeah.
Right? Like being in control of your schedule feels like a luxury. Mm-hmm. But that's interesting that we think that. I thought this question might come up. So I what does it mean to me? I wrote being curious. I am just become so insanely curious about my own feelings around things. Like, I notice that if I start to feel anxious, as soon as I start to feel those physical symptoms in my heart, my chest, I don't have anxiety attacks, but like that sense of like life closing in a little and my body contracting, that neck thing you were talking about. If I start to feel like that, my breathing goes shallow, or I start to feel like my brain is obsessing about a thought, instead of determining the thought or like going into thought, I first ask myself, why am I feeling like that? And it sounds like such a strange thing to do, sort of in concept, but it's exactly what you would say to somebody else. If your daughter or your son came to you and said, I'm feeling this way, you'd say, well, why do you feel that way? What's going on? What's that about? You'd like start personally interviewing them from a curious and loving way. And I've just been practicing for the last few years doing that to myself. And hey, you know what? You actually know. Like, we do know what's going on. It's just, you got to give it a hot second, a hot minute for the information to bubble up and a place to land. And sometimes it's not the first question you ask, it's the second or third. Like, it's like you ask the question and then you take a moment to kind of pause and hear what the answer is. So I just wanted to share something, because Brene Brown, I always think, what would Brene Brown say about this?
I was thinking Byron Katie, but yeah.
Her too. So Rising Strong is one of my favorite books that Brene Brown has written. And she talks a lot about resiliency, but she talks about it in terms of leaders, like what makes great people great leaders. And really, aren't we just our leaders for ourselves? And she says that resiliency is about the people who are the most incredible resilient leaders, stay curious about their own emotions, thoughts, and behaviors. And those are the people they lead. So it's and how it affects the relationships and perceptions. And it's kind of, this all loops back to what you're already talking about, but it's that idea that you do have control over your own thoughts and emotions and your reactions to your life and what you allow in and what you don't, but you can't have control over it if you're not aware of it. And so that's the part that's really essential. And if there was one thing that has kept me closer to my straight and narrow during this, what I consider to be a really, really hard time for me, it's just having my own back in the best way I know. And the only way that I can learn how to do that is to at least be curious to what's going on. She says, those who rise from their face down moment work with creativity. So intellectual, emotional, spiritual, any physical practice that allows them to tap into their curiosity, their creativity. And I also think that's really important. So for me, I'm going to tell you a couple of things that work for me. I have a sense that some of this is the same for you. But yeah, shutting down, powering down, and getting out in nature and, grounding myself and keeping up with the things like being disciplined, being flexible, but being disciplined, putting myself to bed, choosing who I'm hanging out with. Now, for me, what doesn't work is turning off the things in the world that make me uncomfortable. Now, for some people, they're like, I don't talk about that. I don't post it. I don't have those conversations. I do. I'm sure I've annoyed so many people on social media, but I have to speak to the things that speak to me, because if I don't, this is part of my own creativity. And I respect the fact that for other people, they're like, I'm just going to keep posting happy faces, and that's what makes me feel good. And I think that's what we should do. But for me, when I feel like I am ignoring the things that I feel called to speak about, I feel so shut down. And that's the thing that makes me feel so much not like myself that I can't stand it. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
So for you, like, what are your rudder in the water things, the habits and the stuff that work for you, that help you?
Discipline. I love that, because I feel there's so much freedom in discipline, and in the right, in being disciplined with the way that I think, the way that the words that come out of my mouth, because I'm an emoter. I feel it.
I feel it in my bones.
But it's not always, it isn't always the most kind of loving thing if I don't kind of think about, again, where's it coming from? Is that true? That's the Byron Katie, right? Is it true? How am I feeling? Okay, I'm feeling angry. I just said in my head, this person should do something. What does that, is that even true? No, not necessarily. Am I taking things personally? So that's am I taking other people's behaviors and other people's words and actions? Am I taking that personally? And that has been the most profound change for me in the way that I feel about even myself and my other relationships, because truly, I believe that you can't, even if someone is personally physically attacking you and calling you whatever, it is always a reflection of them, right? So it allows me to approach frustrating situations from a place of compassion, and that is so healing for me, right? Everything. And I mean, and I think then I've gone back and thought about the relationships that I've had and how I felt about them, and how my relationship with myself during these periods of time in my life, you know, when I'm more face down. Okay? And for me, that whole not taking that personally, and not taking my own behavior to myself personally, right? So if I've come to accept that I've truly forgiven myself, then I can't, and I like to think that I can, until the next symptom or something comes up and I still have work to do. But right now I feel that sense of calm forgiveness, and it's just extended to everything. And even when I see things coming in through social media, and I have some frustrations about certain things, and there's certain things I can't talk about, right? Yeah. I kind of look at it from that idea of, we truly are all doing our best. You don't have to excuse their behavior, and you don't have to allow it in, and it's not okay. But for me, that's a question I ask myself: am I taking this personally? If I have an emotion, like a strong emotion, that's anything other than like joy and gratitude. Like if it's not a positively charged emotion, then I know that I'm taking it personally, right? So
well, and that's that part.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, and that's the part where when you have that strong emotion, that's the time when I'm most curious. I'm like,
it's information.
I just think my emotions are informing me, right? Like they're just like, so then I want to know, what are they informing me of? Even when I feel like wildly joyful, I'm like, what do I love about this? Because a lot of times we pretend that we don't know what fuels us in a really deep way. But if we really pay attention to our emotions, this is how we inform ourselves of, right? It's easier to see it in other people, less easy to see it in ourselves unless we take the time to do so.
Yeah. Like the other day I had it was a patio, and it was a group. I was meeting a group of women, and it just felt good. There was this like creative exchange. It was a great conversation. I felt super connected, and I left going, right, I feel amazing. And I did pause and think, wow, what was that? What did I get that I need from that, right? Try to articulate the good and the bad, because we don't often, when we're in a good state, we just kind of roll with it. We don't sit and think, okay, what is it about that experience or whatever it is that is making me feel good, so that I can do more of it.
Do more of it. That's right.
And
Heather, David Kresser says you can't both deny your feelings and exercise self-compassion. You have to get curious about what you're feeling. Oh my gosh, that's so true. Right? Yeah. What do you think that the significance of 2020 is right now for women? I know. How's that for a loaded question?
That's a good one, because it's definitely a pivotal point in history. It's such a juicy point in history, and there's so many ways that this can kind of evolve. But I do feel that women are particularly resilient and right, and creative, and and I do think that compassion and coming from a love and a gratitude, I think that we come by that many of us come by that very readily. And I do think that this is a period of time where energy matters. Energy, our vibration matters. And I think that women can tap into that emotional vibration much more efficient. Like it's just, I think it's an innate thing. Yeah, it's a nature thing. And that's not to say that men can't, but we obviously have male, female sides to our energy, so I do think that this is a time when that's super important. And if we think about other points in history and major, revolutionary changes, there was a lot of doing. It was a very masculine point. And I don't know. I think that there's been over the last decade, even you can feel the shift in the energy, there's in the vibration, right? There's a collective consciousness that is growing. Yeah. And I do feel that women at this point can have this like vision, right? Of just this big light, right? Like you can just out, right? We're connectors on something more than just physical. And I think that
couldn't agree more.
Right?
Boy, it's almost like I gave you that question in beforehand, but I didn't.
No, you didn't.
I feel like when you were speaking, I feel goosebumps. And the reason why I believe I feel that is because I do think women are being called not to do something that they're not capable of, but to be who they truly are. I feel like if there was ever a time, and I think this is why it feels exceptionally, this is totally projecting here, but it feels exceptionally uncomfortable for women is because there is a calling forth and women feel it. It's always been the time for females, for the feminine in the world. But I feel like now more than ever, we're being called to the level in which we were designed. So it's that time to be saying, no more of that. And I'm not available for that. And that's why I can't stop talking about boundaries and reclaiming your voice and speaking your truth, because frick, man, this just feels like this is so fucking important right now. Like I could just jump on my chair and be like, can't you feel it? Because you can feel it. And that uncomfortable, it's just pushing back what's no longer important. It's just saying like, that isn't for you anymore. Can't you feel that? And this is no longer for you. Can you feel that? Because I feel like we can feel it. We know it, we feel it, we don't really know necessarily what to do with it. But these are the conversations that I think are so important, because when you hear someone speak about it, because this is how it started for me. I heard someone else speak about it and I was like, hell yeah, that's true. I feel that way. And then once I could say that, I was like, I feel it. I'm over here doing this and I feel it. And I'm over there doing that and I feel it. And like, I don't always know what to do with it, like more than 50% of the time, but I'm just trying. I'm just trying to speak to it. And I just find right now, I have to sit down way more than I stand up. But when I'm choosing to stand up, I want to practice being me, like in a way I've never practiced being me, like in a way I've never known how to be me.
And what's beautiful about this 2020 situation is that so many of the distractions have been taken away. We can't travel, so we can't, distract ourselves with travel. Or not really, we can, but,
not really.
Not really, not in any enjoyable way right now. Even the socialization, even the groups that we like socialize with, all of it, we've had to be very, very intentional about who we, and also, looking around at the choices that we've made in our own life and our own family life. And it's, so for some of us, I think that's been a hard wake up call.
Right.
But, it's like you don't have the distractions anymore. So what are you going to do with that? What are you going to do with that information?
Well, and honestly, I guess the thing that I find myself saying a lot is, well, what's the alternative? What's the alternative? So the information, you're afraid to go forward, but in your soul, you have choices that you need to make. But what's the alternative? The alternative is you try and stuff down the thing that just jumped up in your face. Good luck with that. Tried that. Doesn't work very well. Or you can believe with all the trust and faith that you have in the world that what's coming up is for you and that you are designed to manage it. It's there for you. And I tell you, that trust, that patience, that faith, that knowing, I think it comes in and out in waves. Like if you're looking for it to be present in your life 24/7 right now, it probably won't be. You're going to wax and wane with it. It's kind of like motivation. It comes and it goes. So you need to just, more than anything, I think, just cultivate this great sense of just trusting. Like, can I trust what I know, what's coming up for me? And if I'm going to trust anything right now, I'm choosing that. I'm choosing to trust what comes up for me, because I don't know. I'm going to bet on myself.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I can imagine if we all, I mean, we're healing. The earth is healing. We're all healing. We're working towards a return to wholeness, right? Healing. And I think the earth is healing. I think, you know, it's amazing, really.
Yeah.
In
a painful,
in
rocky,
uncomfortable.
fall on your face, get back up with your skin, holding your girlfriends, dragging your kids and special people. It's true. I think we're saying the same things. So coming back to the idea of resiliency, because I want to be mindful of people's time. I mean, resiliency is just how it shows up. It's just that, you know, our ability to pop back from the times when we get beat down. And let's be honest, you're going to feel beat down right now because it's a lot to show up right now. So I say I'm sitting down more than I'm standing up. And what I mean by that is I've never needed more rest than now. I've never needed more compassion for myself than now. I've never needed more self-honoring tools than now. And so if you're struggling with that, I would say, look at those things. You know, the story that we have in our head about what we need and the reality in our being about what we need may not be lining up. So just choosing what you're listening to, I think, is really important. Danielle.
Yep. Yes.
I miss you. Thank you so much
I miss
for
you
being
too.
to me today. I have loved
coming
it.
Home?
We'll meet in Saskatchewan.
Okay.
All right. So thank you everybody for joining us today. If you're watching this live, thank you so much for watching us. If you're getting this in replay, I really appreciate it as well. Keep commenting, keep asking the questions. Danielle and I will be back and forth on the recording on the private Facebook page over the next few days and just continuing the conversation. So thank you everybody. And thank you, Danielle.
My pleasure. Anytime.
All right.